You're watching WJLA 24/7 News. Good morning, Washington. On your side.
And welcome back, 7:08 now. And White House Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney is now backtracking on his statement about quid pro quo with Ukraine. Take a listen.
We do that all the time with foreign policy. And I have news for everybody. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy.
So that's what he said, and Mulvaney telling reporters yesterday that the U.S. did hold back millions of dollars in aid to create pressure for an investigation into the president's political opponents. And now Mulvaney says that he never admitted that. So we bring in our political insider, Armstrong Williams, to discuss this. A little bit confusing here. What do you make of this?
Not at all. He was not referring to Joe Biden when he made that statement. He was referring to the fact that Trump had made a point about why did we give them all this money? They're corrupt. And Mulvaney replied, well, we just cannot do this. There are a lot of them that are corrupt. What the reporter did was put it in the context as if he were talking about Biden in the Ukraine and the investigation. Those are separate instances that took place. And he's correct. He did not make an admission. They were separate issues.
All right. President Trump very happy about the ceasefire that apparently was reached with Syria, with Turkey, so they would stop firing on Syria. But now Turkey's saying it's not a ceasefire; it's a pause for 5 days.
It is not a ceasefire. What they've created is a safe zone. You know, we have to understand that there are different Kurds in that part of the region. There are the Iraqi Kurds, which we're friendly with. There are the Syrian Kurds, and there are the Turkish Kurds. The Turkish Kurds and the Syrian Kurds are not necessarily our allies. What they've created in this place now is a safe zone. It's a safe zone, which is a 22-mile radius, gives them the opportunity to build, just like what we had over the no-fly zone over Iraq for almost 12 years. It took that long for them to put their government and everything in place in the infrastructure. This is what they're allowing the Kurds to do now in this part of Syria. They get a chance to operate, to build, and there's no military action there, but it does not say that military action is not somewhere in Syria. So the Turkish government is correct in saying that it is not a ceasefire. It's just that there's no ceasefire and there's no action in that region, which they carved out for the Kurds so they will have a safe place to build a government and not have the threats of the conflict that's going on there. And
it was the Syrian Kurds then, I'm assuming, that were allies with the U.S.
The Iraqi
fighting
Kurds.
Against
it was the Iraqi
ISIS.
Kurds. It was the Iraqi Kurds. And listen, who better? Another thing that's going to happen: the Turkish government is going to have to see some land there. Eventually, it may not happen quickly. It may happen over the next 5 to 10 years. But once they establish some kind of operation there, part of that parcel of land will also have to expand into Turkey to give them more room and more parcel to operate with. And Trump, listen, the president, it may seem cold-hearted, but they've always fought each other. They've always killed each other. That's their mentality. But if you're a parent and you had a son or daughter there, you think twice about if that's the kind of conflict you want your son or daughter and come back home in a body bag.
A lot of outpouring back in this country for the passing of Elijah Cummings yesterday, a towering figure not only in the civil rights movement, but among his colleagues on Capitol Hill from both sides of the aisle, everybody praising him. What will he be remembered for, Armstrong?
You know, he was like a Lion of Judah. I mean, he was Elijah Rock. He actually rocked. I thought the president said it best yesterday. Of his importance, you cannot replace him. I mean, he fought, he had integrity, he had honor. He never lost his North Star. I remember in conversations I've had with him, we could joust and debate on TV. We could be opposite of each other, but at the end of the day, he said we have to remind each other that we're human beings. We have to be decent. We have to be civil. And that's who Elijah Cummings was. Elijah Cummings was a very decent, very affable, very engaging guy. He was just a good guy, and it's a great loss. But it reminds us how fragile we all are, and we never know what that day and hour. That's why we should always be respectful. We should not allow our hearts to be hardened by the political battlefield. At the end of the day, we still have to get on with the things that are important to our lives that make life work for us. And it's more than just politics.
Well said. All right. Thanks so much, Armstrong. Good to talk to you. And you can watch the Armstrong Williams Show every Saturday morning, 10:30, right here on WJLA 24/7 News. Well, now 7:12, and here is your number of the day. 27% of voters say they are not confident votes will be properly counted in the 2020 election. A ScottRasmussen.com national survey also found 7% of voters say they don't believe the legitimate winners will be announced.